In the upcoming video, Noam Chomsky discusses how the US military is misunderstood. Here is some of the things Chomsky believes is misconceived by the public. Chomsky argues that the dominant narrative portrays the military primarily as a defensive force protecting the nation. He contends that a more accurate understanding acknowledges the offensive capabilities and interventions beyond national borders. While acknowledging the military's role in technological advancements, Chomsky criticizes the notion that it solely drives economic growth. He argues that the vast military budget often comes at the expense of other crucial social programs. Chomsky questions the alignment between military actions and the best interests of the general public. He suggests examining the potential influence of powerful groups, like the arms industry, in shaping military policy. Now off to this wonderful clip of Chomsky, and following it some of his alternative perspectives.
Well, the military is somewhat misunderstood, I think. Actually, I'm in a pretty good position to know it. I've been at MIT for, 60 years, I guess. And MIT is a good example of one crucial function of the military system. For many years, right into the 1970s, MIT was almost 100% funded by the Pentagon. It was also the main academic center of resistance against the Vietnam War. My lab, in fact, was one of the main academic centers. I was up for a long jail sentence. The Pentagon didn't give a damn. If you want to overthrow the country, that's your business. They don't care, But what they did give a damn about is creating the next phase of the high-tech economy. The Pentagon was and remains, to a large extent, a kind of a funnel but into which taxpayers pour funds diluted into thinking, we're defending ourselves from whoever it may be. And the money goes into developing the next phase of the high-tech economy. So if you use a computer or you use the internet, you fly an airplane, which is a modified bomber, and so on, you're taking advantage of the role of the dynamic state sector in the economy. I mean, a lot of what's called entrepreneurial initiative and so on is coming straight out of the state sector. Actually, I once wrote an article a couple of years ago after Alan Greenspan had given one of his orations about the marvels of the free economy, entrepreneurial initiative, consumer choice. He made the mistake of actually listing about a dozen examples. Every single one of them, with one exception, was a textbook case where the work was almost entirely done in the state sector. No consumer choice, no entrepreneurial initiative, just a lot of it paid for by the Pentagon. Actually, there was one exception, which was even more enlightening. It was transistors. He pointed out correctly that transistors were developed in the private sector, AT&T, but he didn't explain why. It was because AT&T had a government-guaranteed monopoly, so therefore they could charge monopoly prices, and they could use that benefit to establish a very good lab, Bell Labs. We used to go up and back there all the time in the 50s and 60s. So a great lab, did a lot of things, feeding at the public trough like everything else is. They were using wartime technology, which came out of the government, of course. They couldn't sell advanced computers because they were too expensive, so the government bought them. 100% of the advanced transistors put out by Western Electric around 1960 were picked up by the government. And in fact, if you look, procurement is one of the major means for subsidizing private industry. It was done with computers, it's done with all kinds of things. Until they can get to the point where they can sell things on the market, somebody's got to buy it. Okay, that's the government, usually the Pentagon. So that's one major aspect of the Pentagon, and it continues right to the present. In fact, it was kind of funny around 1970, if you were in this racket. Under pressure from the popular anti-war movements, Congress passed legislation. It's called the Mansfield Amendment, which required that all Pentagon-funded work at universities has to be military-related. It's a good project for somebody, which I suggest if you want. Take a look at the DARPA, which is Advanced Research Project Agency, the one that does the fancy stuff. If you look at the I've looked at a couple of them, but I suspect it's uniform. If you look at the DARPA reports, you know, what people wrote about what they're doing, you know, you got to put in a description every year of what you've been doing. Before the Mansfield Amendment, people just said what they were doing. After the Mansfield Amendment, the reports have two parts. The first one begins with some fakery about military applications which don't exist. And the second part, which they figure the generals will never get to, is about what they're actually doing, you know. But that's one major component, one major function of the Pentagon. And you can do it because you can delude people. You know, people think we got to defend ourselves, so we'll pour money into this. The other one is just beating people up, you know. It's not a small thing.
Just 1 or 2 more minutes.
Yeah, okay. If you want to run the world, you got to have force. There's a reason why the United States is the only country in the world that has roughly 1,000 military bases around the world, has missile systems, nuclear systems aimed at anybody in sight who might someday be a problem, and so on. So that's important. There is what Dean Baker called a nanny state for the rich, and one large part of it is making sure that the rich are protected. Okay, so that's the other function of the military system.
Chomsky advocates for prioritizing diplomatic solutions and building strong international alliances to address global threats. He emphasizes the need for greater transparency in the military activities and increased public scrutiny of military budgets and operations. Chomsky believes that resources currently allocated to the military could be better utilized for addressing pressing human needs, such as poverty, education, and healthcare. Well, I hope you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you wish to join the channel as a member, it is 99 cents a month, it would be appreciated. Now, take care and bye-bye.